And in 6 years, you've let 30,000 criminals go, right?
That's correct.
And you don't have the slightest idea how many of them committed another crime and came back.
I don't have that number in front of me today,
And you
sir.
run the Bureau of Prisons.
That's correct.
And how many employees do you have?
About 40,000 employees.
Oh, my God. Oh, my.
Oh my God, seriously. Wow. You just saw that, right? That was Senator John Kennedy, and that reaction? That's not theatrics. That's what it looks like when someone hears, in real time, exactly what so many people worry might be true about how our government is being run. The woman he's questioning is Colette Peters, the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. She oversees a multi-billion-dollar budget and is responsible for more than 150,000 federal inmates. And yet, under oath, when asked straightforward, fundamental questions about her agency's major programs, she doesn't have the answers. This isn't about left versus right. It's not Republican versus Democrat. Strip all of that away. This is about accountability, real accountability, versus a system that feels buried in bureaucracy. What you're about to watch is one of the clearest, most striking examples of why so many people are frustrated with Washington, D.C. It captures, in a single exchange, what people mean when they say the system feels broken. As you watch the full clip, listen carefully to the questions Senator Kennedy asks. These aren't gotcha moments. They are simple, common-sense questions, the kind any taxpayer would ask, the kind anyone would expect clear answers to. If you think this kind of accountability matters, and if these non-answers frustrate you as much as they frustrate me, make sure to show it. Engage with the conversation. We need more eyes on this, more people paying attention, and as you watch, I want to hear what you think. What stands out to you? What concerns you most? All right, let's go ahead and watch the full exchange from beginning to end.
Director Peters, you're the director of the Bureau of Prisons, is that right?
That's correct, sir.
You used to run the correction system in Oregon, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Oregon legalized drugs, is that right?
That's correct.
Oregon's about to reverse that, is that correct?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the policy proposed to reverse that.
Oh, you've just ignored Oregon?
Oregon still has a very special place in my heart, sir.
Okay. You haven't read any of the articles about the reversal?
I haven't, Senator.
You don't know anything about it?
Correct, sir.
Okay, wow. You're in charge of implementing the First Step Act, Director?
That's correct.
How many criminals have you released under the First Step Act?
So First Step Act for the overall release since the initiation of the First Step Act is, I have that exact number in front of me.
You don't know off the top of your head?
Sorry, Senator. So 70% of those that were released, we have about 30,000 individuals that have been released since the passage of the First Step Act.
All right, so you've released 30,000 criminals under the First Step Act. Okay? And how many of them, before you released them, did you contact any of their victims to say we're about to let this guy out?
Senator, it's my understanding that that notification happens through the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I will check into that and get back to you.
You don't know?
Senator, I don't.
Have you followed up with the U.S. attorneys to say, do you have a system to say, hey, we're about to let this guy out? Would we want to be sure the victim's contacted?
As a former victim's advocate, I share that value, that victim notification should happen. I'll check on the process.
But you don't know if it's happening?
That's correct, Senator.
Wow. Okay, of the 30,000 criminals you let free, how many of them have come back? Have committed a crime again, hurt somebody else?
So that number is one that we're still looking at as it relates to the recidivism rate for those that were released on the First Step Act.
You don't have any idea?
No, Senator.
You don't have anybody at the Bureau that can count?
I do not have that number in front of me today,
So let me
Senator.
get this straight. The First Step Act was passed in 2018. This is 2024. Am I right so far?
That's correct.
That's 6 years. And in 6 years, you've let 30,000 criminals go, right?
That's correct.
And you don't have the slightest idea how many of them committed another crime and came back.
I don't have that number in front of me today,
And you
sir.
run the Bureau of Prisons.
That's correct.
And how many employees do you have?
About 40,000 employees.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. General, I know you got a lot to do, but could you give us a hand here? And let's find out whether the First Step Act worked. And how many, if we've released 30,000 criminals after 6 years, our director here doesn't know how many have committed another crime and come back? Can you help us?
Senator, I can certainly follow up on that issue. I will just say in terms of work we've done in the past, for example, on compassionate release, and going to the Bureau of Prisons, this is before Director Peters was there, and asking them for data on compassionate release, because that was one of the issues that has come up.
Excuse me for interrupting, but I'm not talking about compassionate release.
No, I understand.
You know, my colleague said, we were told that it would save money and it would be in the interest of public safety to release criminals from prison. I didn't vote for it, but the majority rules. And so Congress did it. And Ms. Peters, Director Peters at the Bureau of Prisons, and her colleagues released 30,000 criminals, all of whom are there for a reason, okay? They didn't just go to prison for a free toaster. They were there for a reason. And so her department let them go, and after 6 years, we don't have the slightest idea. Not a single one of the 40,000 of her employees know how many have committed a second crime and come back. So how the hell are we supposed to figure out whether it worked?
Senator,
Your people ought to hide their head in a bag, Director, that you can't come here in front of this Congress and answer that question. I'm sorry, I interrupted you with my speech.
no, that's okay. I was just going to, my bottom line point on it was, I've often looked to those questions on things like compassionate release and other programs. And one of the challenges we found is the department just doesn't have good data on that. Halfway houses. Congress is spending about $500 million a year on halfway houses. There's really not great recidivism data on that either. How well are they working?
Before we do this, we need to find out. Look, I believe in justice. I believe in treating everybody fairly. But there are people out there, I don't know why, if I make it to heaven, I'm going to ask. They're not mixed up. They're not confused. They're not sick. It's not that their mama or daddy didn't love them or not enough. They just hurt other people, and they take other people's stuff, and we have to separate them from society. And the director let 30,000 of these folks go and can't tell me today how many have come back. I just find it takes my breath away. With 40,000 people. How many of your 40,000 people are actually coming to work or are still working from home, Director?
The supermajority of our employees come to work every day because we're running 24/7
What percentage are coming to work every day?
The percentage is quite high. I don't have the exact
You
number.
don't know?
But
Well, maybe there's your problem.
the supermajority of our individuals come
If they're
to
not
work
coming
at
to
our
work, they
institutions.
can't give us the answer. I've gone over. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. This is why people hate government and don't trust government.
So I'd like to respond concerning the Grassley-Durbin First Step Act signed into law by President Donald
I thought
Trump.
you might have a response.
By President Donald Trump. I almost want to repeat that because this notion that it's soft on crime, I don't consider Chuck Grassley soft on crime. I don't consider Donald Trump soft on crime. Let me tell you the numbers that we have. Some 30,000 released. The recidivism rate for people released under the First Step Act is 12.4%. 7 out of every 8 individuals released under the law have not been rearrested or charged with a new crime. By comparison, DOJ estimates that in the decade before the First Step Act was passed, 43% of the people formerly incarcerated in BOP were rearrested within 3 years of their release. Is the First Step Act working? I would submit it is.
Would you yield for a question, Mr. Chair?
When I finish.
I'm sorry.
The point
Excuse me for interrupting.
The point I'm making is we decided with the Trump administration and Senator Grassley's leadership that we were going to take a different approach to releasing people from prison. We would give them an opportunity to be trained, educated, skilled, in many ways more prepared for release. because 80%, I believe, in the system are going to be released someday. We don't want to commit another crime or create another victim. I would submit this is a success. Don't put your head in a bag, or whatever Senator suggested. Stand up tall and try to make it better, and I'm ready to do that. But the First Step Act was a constructive reform of the penal system, and I think it was a good idea and stand by it. I'll submit to your question.
Thank you. And I appreciate, as usual, Dick, you make good points. Here's my point. I didn't vote for the First Step Act because I was afraid this was going to happen. And what I hear you saying is that of the 30,000 that the director released, over 3,000 committed another crime in her back. Here's my question. How come you know that and she doesn't?
Because she's probably looking
And the
for
40,000 people at the Bureau of Prisons who are supposed to give us this information don't know.
I'd like to say, in all fairness, she's under oath, and I think when you ask for numbers, she wants to make sure she tells you a number she can live with. I have this information. I think it's probably close to being 100% accurate, but I wouldn't say under oath it is. So I think give her a fair opportunity to respond. I mean, it just might not be the type of thing that comes
But
rolling
you're
off
not
the tongue.
it's not your job, and I appreciate the information, and I'd like to see the study that shows that. I just don't understand why the director has no idea.
Well,
She didn't say she was uncertain and she wanted to go back and check. She said, I don't know.
All right, you just watched the full exchange. Now let's actually break this down, because nearly every moment of that was unbelievable in its own way. Right from the start, Kennedy isn't aggressive. He's calm, almost methodical. He sets the foundation, confirms who she is, brings up her previous role in Oregon. Then he asks a simple, reasonable question, whether she's aware that Oregon is now reversing its drug decriminalization policy, and her response. She says she's not familiar with it. Stop there for a second. You're telling me you led policy in that space, in that state, and now you're running the federal prison system, but you haven't even kept up with major developments tied directly to your past work? That's not just a gap, that's a mindset. That's someone operating in a bubble. No curiosity, no follow-up, no awareness. That's your first red flag. Then Kennedy pivots to the core issue, the First Step Act. Whatever your opinion on the law is, that's irrelevant here. It passed. It's real policy. And as Peters eventually confirms, after digging through her own notes, it resulted in the release of around 30,000 inmates. That's not a small administrative change. That's the population of an entire town. This is a massive federal action with real-world consequences. So Kennedy asks what should be the most basic, human question imaginable. Were the victims notified? Just think about that. Before releasing tens of thousands of offenders, did anyone make sure the people affected, the victims, were informed? Her answer? She says it's her understanding that the U.S. Attorney's Office handles that, and she'll need to check that you're the director. This falls under your system. Your responsibility. And you're not even certain whether victims are being notified? There's no clear process you can point to? No confidence in the answer. That's not a small oversight, that's a leadership failure. Full stop. And then comes the moment that really blows the whole thing open. Kennedy asks the one question everything hinges on. Did it work? Out of the 30,000 individuals released, how many reoffended and ended up back in prison? That's it. That's the metric. That's the entire point of the policy. If you can't answer that, then what are you even measuring? And after 6 years, her answer is that they're still looking into it. When pressed further, does she have any estimate? Any ballpark? Any data at all? No, Senator. Let that sink in. This is an agency with roughly 40,000 employees. A multi-billion-dollar operation. And somehow, no one has been tasked with consistently tracking the single most important outcome of one of their largest programs. Not a report. Not a dashboard. Not even a rough figure that in any normal job. That kind of answer doesn't fly. If you ran a project for years and couldn't say whether it succeeded or failed, you wouldn't get a second chance. You'd be out the door. Immediately. But here, she's sitting in front of the Senate, and I don't know is apparently acceptable. Kennedy's reaction, oh my God, isn't exaggerated. It's exactly what most people are thinking at that point, and just when you think it can't get worse, it does. After Kennedy's time runs out, Senator Dubin jumps in. You can see what's happening. He's trying to steady the ship, offer some backup. He says he has the number, a recidivism rate of 12.4%, but that doesn't fix anything. It actually makes the situation worse, because now the obvious question is, how does a senator have that data ready, but the director of the Bureau of Prisons doesn't? And Kennedy drives that point home perfectly. How is it possible that someone outside the agency has the answer, but the person running the entire operation does not? That's the knockout punch. The attempted rescue just confirms the core problem. The agency isn't on top of its own mission. The leadership isn't in control of the most basic metrics. And the system only gets exposed when someone asks straightforward, common-sense questions. This isn't just about one hearing or one official. It points to something deeper, a culture where accountability isn't expected, where not knowing is tolerated, and where critical questions go unasked until moments like this force them into the open. And that's why exchanges like this matter. Because apparently, the simplest questions are the ones that reveal the most.